TV was a good idea, not because I make much money on it. I mean, we get paid like 50 grand a year each. I actually lose money, a tremendous amount of money on the show. I personally think every dollar and every hour of your life that is extra that you could allocate should be spent on YouTube.
Say that. Go deeper into that. Why is that?
You know, we had a deal where it was just one house recently, and seller was like, you know, I want $700,000 for it. And we're like, well, it's only worth like $350, but hey, if we could give you $7 for it, would you be interested in waiting for a little while? And they said, yeah, how are you going to do that? And we already knew we could take this piece of land from one house to 74 houses, and we're about to start developing 74 lots out of that piece of land. That's what we do.
I gave the seller a 50% premium over what their property was worth. But by the time I got done upzoning that land, the value of that land was double what I was paying the seller. He got paid a premium, and I doubled my money before I ever even closed on the land or put shovels in the ground.
Let's go into what's going on in your life right now. Obviously, the audience, if you have never heard of Face Morby, you've been living under a rock. So you need to look him up. You need to subscribe to him. You need to check A&E, his television show. You need to
don't check out the YouTube. TV show. Sucks.
It doesn't suck.
It's a great show. It's just that it's a fix and flip show, which is not. I'm not really a fix and flipper.
Yeah.
It was, it was more of a brand play for us of like. I'll give you guys a good example of why TV was such a good idea. And also...
Yeah, let's talk about that.
TV was a good idea, not because I make much money on it. I mean, we get paid like 50 grand a year each. And if you look at how much work we put into it, I actually lose money, a tremendous amount of money on the show. What I learned in year one of doing this was 3 years ago when we filmed season 1. Everybody's like, why are you doing a TV show? You already have a YouTube channel that gets millions of views every single month. And my answer was because, one, I want to be able to say I did a TV show before TV completely dies in 10 years, right? Like TV will die in 10 years. It's gone. It's going to be gone.
Yeah.
And we see it dismantling now anyway. Most everybody's going to streaming. And so we decided, let's go check that box. That's kind of like this old thought process of TV is really, really cool. I'm still of an age that I think TV is cool. And being able to say you are on TV is very cool.
Yeah.
I'm also still of an age where if somebody says you got put in a magazine, I'd be like, that's pretty legit. Nowadays, nobody reads magazines, right? So we took the TV show, one, because we thought it would be fun. Two, I knew that it would be the most credible thing that I could bring up when I get introduced.
Right.
As silly as that sounds, I'll give you a good example. 4 years ago, I hung out with Grant Cardone probably 5 times. I'd been in a bunch of rooms with him for five or six other reasons. Never remembered me, which is perfectly fine, right? Like I don't live, breathe, and die for Grant Cardone.
Right.
But like you, he's one of my heroes, and I appreciate a lot of the things he does in terms of marketing and understanding. And his company culture also is phenomenal. When you actually go to his office, you're like, holy crap, this is phenomenal. But
high energy. Right,
high energy, loyalty, just amazing. They get the mission and they get it done, which is amazing. So one day we go, hey, we want to do a podcast with Grant. And so we reach out to their team and they go, no problem. That'll be $165,000. And I was like, that's a lot of money to do a podcast with a guy. And I was like, here's what that means for me. I'm not opposed to buying relationships. I've bought relationships before. I go to a mastermind to buy relationships.
Right.
That's what I do, right? I'm not opposed to that, but what that's telling me is that I have not brought enough value to Grant and that there's not an equal exchange for us spending time together. So I said, what could I do that would bring an equal exchange to somebody like a Grant Cardone? Because every time I go to a Grant Cardone or somebody like that, a Patrick Bet-David or somebody else, I'm going to have to write a check for $165,000 if I want that relationship, or I can go internally and say, where can I provide value? And the TV show was the answer. Here's what ended up happening. I get the TV show maybe a year after the 165 conversation happened. And what happened was I was at a party again. Somebody goes, hey, Grant's here. Are you friends with Grant? I go, we have met. He doesn't remember me. He wanted to charge me $165,000 for a podcast. So let me put it that way. And the guy's like, let me go introduce you. I'm like, all right, sounds good. He goes over and introduces me and says, hey, Grant, this is Pace Morby, the host of Triple Digit Flip on A&E. It was the first time somebody had not introduced me as a real estate investor, but a TV host. And immediately Grant pulls out his phone. Elena pulls out their phone. They go, take our cell phone number. Let's collaborate. Let's go to dinner. Can we get on your TV show? And it was like, now they wanted something from me. And the TV show's done that for us for 50 different relationships. It's opened up doors that nothing else. Even though my YouTube channel does well and other things do well, and I buy all this real estate and we help all these people and I've changed lives and I've done all these things, there's certain doors I cannot open unless I say, I have a TV show.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I tell people, they go, should I watch your TV show? I go, no. I didn't make the TV show so you could watch it. I made the TV show so I could tell people I have a TV show.
So you think a Dirty Jack TV show would work?
I think Dirty Jack.
a land TV show.
Here's the challenge, okay? They call it house porn in TV.
Yeah.
And what is house porn? House porn is like, they want to see the before and the after.
Exactly. That's what I always say. When the team says, like, we should be on a TV show, people tell us, you should be a TV show. It would more be a family show because my wife and I just bicker back and forth. I mean, we love each other really dearly, but obviously it's she's like an A player, I'm an A player, or like a type A kind of personality. Yeah. So we're like going back and forth about stuff all the time. That probably makes for good TV. But the land itself, it's like it sits there and then you sell it for more and then, you get a check and there's nothing that happens in the process.
Yeah, if they could not show a backsplash on an episode, they would lose their freaking minds.
Yeah.
A&E is just like, we have to and it's so funny how much time, like here, both you and I are millionaires and we own all this real estate, and I find myself on a TV set and they're like, okay, we need you to put your hand on this tile and like rub the tile this way because we want to make sure that we show the grout. And I'm like, wow, this is what I'm doing with my life right now. And you just realize that that's what the TV show is all about, is just people sitting on the couch watching a before and an after. And nobody cares about anything other than like the transition and the transformation. So if you don't have a TV show on like reality TV if it doesn't have a transition, your TV show is not going to succeed.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Makes perfect sense. Perhaps we can do one in the multifamily space since we're operating there and we have some really good,
think that's smart.
Shit show to stellar looking properties kind of experiences.
I personally think every dollar and every hour of your life that is extra that you could allocate should be spent on YouTube.
Say that. Go deeper into that. Why is that?
I've never been recognized because of the TV show. Like we get 1 million viewers of the TV show every Saturday, and I've never been recognized from the TV show. I get recognized I can't go to the gas station. I can't go to Walmart. I can't go to In-N-Out Burger without somebody saying, can I get your autograph? I watch your YouTube channel all the time.
Oh, wow.
My YouTube channel, and I am coming on 300,000 subscribers, but in real estate, 300,000 subscribers is a massive amount of followers. So that's on YouTube. And people actually can get to know you. You can direct the narrative. You can tell people what you want. And what I always say, like I look at these cameras, right? These Blackmagic cameras you guys have right here. Mm-hmm. These are not cameras to me. These are clone creators. So think about it this way. You and I right now are creating clones of ourselves that somebody's going to watch later and later and later and later. This video will live in perpetuity for forever. So if I could create clones to say something I want to say, to deliver a message I want them to say, to get a result I want, I'm just going to create more clones. And a TV show does not allow me to create the clone that I want. It's a stupid clone that's talking about backsplashes and stupid freaking driveway pouring and stuff like that. But when I'm on my own YouTube channel, I can raise capital, I can recruit employees, I can find new business opportunities. I probably own 7 small little businesses that people have brought to me just because of my YouTube channel that are like, I want to give you equity in this company because I want you to bring it up on your YouTube channel. I go, and I get 40 of those a year, and I'll say yes to maybe 2 of them. But I make a couple $1 million a year just from those things that came from YouTube, and none of that came from TV. So I can direct the narrative. I can talk about what I want to talk about to get the result that I'm looking for.
Right. Now, no, absolutely, you're in control of it, and now and then over
look
time,
at Ben Mala. Do you follow Ben Mala?
I don't think I do.
Okay, so Ben Mala, for example, you should follow Ben Mala. This conversation you're having about like you and your wife bickering back and forth and talking about land and a little bit. Ben Mala is a real estate channel that has about 700,000 subscribers, but he's 90% family and drama in his family, 10% real estate.
I have to admit that I actually am from that generation that actually grew up without YouTube. So I have YouTube. I watch certain things on YouTube, but I don't naturally go to YouTube. I don't watch a whole lot of YouTube. Now we have Patrick here. We produce YouTube videos and things like that, but it's not my go-to thing. I'm on Facebook and Instagram for a bunch of things, but YouTube is not something where I go spend hours watching.
The highest
things. So
quality
that's why
client.
I praise the. But I understand from a customer point of view, the highest quality clients come from YouTube.
Correct.
And not from the other
Because they're
channels.
dating you on Facebook, they're dating you on Instagram, they marry you on YouTube.
Yeah.
They truly get to know who you are on YouTube. And if you are not giving them... Now, here's the other thing I would do. I don't do a lot of studio stuff on my YouTube. I do maybe 1 or 2 things a week that's a studio related, like, hey, we're filming in here, that goes on the YouTube channel. But most of the stuff that I'm doing on my YouTube channel is going out in the field and giving people a little bit more entertainment. So for example, the best YouTube videos that we do are like, I'm at a gas station, QT. Actually, this is right down the road off Greenway. I pull up to a gas station. We're about to go film at a property I just bought here, subject to, and my team is with me. I pull over to get gas at the gas station, and the guy who's changing out the gas or the trash liners is like, "Are you Pace Morby?" Did he recognize me, by the way, from the TV show or from YouTube? YouTube, of course. And I said, "Yeah, dude, I'm Pace Morby. We're gonna go film YouTube. Like, you want to just like, when are you off your shift?" He's like, "I'm off in 45 minutes." I go, "We'll wait for you. You want to come hang out with us and film YouTube?" He's like, "You're kidding me. You'll let me come with you?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's go. Like, you can ask me any question about the house. I think it would be great for you to, be my audience member, and I'm talking to you through to the audience." He comes over. We do 6 videos at the house, him asking the questions authentically, genuinely, not sitting there doing all this scripting and just answering questions to him. And the audience, it was like, I think that series, it's like 6 videos. We got 1 million views on those because people are like, "Oh my gosh, you're out in the field. You're actually at the house. You're answering a question. This kid has authentic stuff. It's not scripted. This is so great." And you're doing more reality-based type of stuff out on YouTube. So if you were doing that, your YouTube channel would skyrocket.
All right, let's go out to some land.
Yeah, you should. Or
multifamily for that matter.
Multifamily, or even your students here. You've got students that have land deals. Here's one thing that I do, Jack. This is like a lunatic thing that I do that I think most people just don't want to do. If I go speak, like if we go to the family mastermind in Tampa, I'm actually not going there for the family mastermind. What I'm actually doing is going there to do a meetup with my community. I'll do a meetup with them. I'll talk to 200 or 300 of them in whatever city I'm in. And I'll go through and extract stories of what they're doing in that local area. And I'll find a place that we can go film YouTube content the next day on their properties. So now as I travel around the entire country, it doesn't have to be my house as the backdrop or my property as the backdrop. I'm getting one of my students to tell their story and giving them obviously some spotlight, but simultaneously giving the audience members something way more valuable than, here's Pace talking about another house he bought. It's like, hey, here's somebody else that can do this too. So my suggestion is if you're out there traveling, going to the family mastermind and doing whatever else, it's like, who in your coaching program, which one of your students is in that local area you can stop by and go, let's talk about a deal. Even if you don't own it, let's stand in front of the piece of dirt that you wholesaled and let's do a video about like, how did you find the deal? How did this happen? What was the biggest thing you overcame? How long did you have to follow up with the seller? What was the hiccups at title? Was there a lien that popped up? People want to watch deals that actually happened.
Makes total sense. What exactly do you do with land?
So we work with the local municipalities to identify their vision for the community and make that a reality. And we add value for ourselves and our investors by identifying the parcels of land that are not zoned the highest and best use and force appreciating the value of that land through a rezone process or entitling it to take it through approval. So think of it like taking 6-7 acres. We had a deal where it was just one house recently, and seller was like, I want $700,000 for it. And we're like, well, it's only worth like $350, but hey, if we could give you 7 for it, would you be interested in waiting for a little while? And they said, yeah, how are you going to do that? And we already knew we could take this piece of land from one house to 74 houses, and we're about to start developing 74 lots out of that piece of land. That's what we do.
What size was that lot?
What size was that lot? This was pretty big. I think this one was like 20 acres, I want to say, somewhere around there.
So the guy was having one house on 20 acres, and basically as is, it was worth 350. But if you could rezone it and make it into a higher density, then it was worth how much?
Oh God, we could probably just flip that piece of land right now for I'm trying to do back of the napkin math. We bought it for $11,000 per pad. Yeah, let's see. We bought it for 700. You can put 74 homes on there. So that's around 10 a pad. And I mean, we could easily sell it for 22, 23 right now. So yeah, I don't know what the math boils down to, but probably somewhere around 1.5, 1.6 million is probably what it's worth.
Wonderful. Yeah. So you could make $1 million on that deal by selling it, quickly selling it on the market. But in this case, you're pursuing one of your strategies. Before we got started up the video here, before we started the interview, you told me that you have 3 exit strategies and you work on a 4th exit strategy. Let's quickly go through that. So the first thing is, so you find a piece of land that is either not zoned right for its best use, or that's just been underutilized, or that you can do something with it. And then what are your 3 or 4 exit strategies on there?
Yeah. So the key here really is to work with the city. I think that's where a lot of developers make the mistake. If you are giving the city what it wants and you've sat down with them and you've done a needs assessment and you said, what's lacking in the community? Where are all the things the citizens are complaining about? What do you guys need? How can we help you out with tax revenue, and sit down with them on the same side of the table? Then it's a completely different story than someone coming with just some random piece of land and trying to shove it down someone's throat. So that's step one. That's what we really do, is we try to align ourselves with the city and what they want and what they want to build. And it just works a whole lot easier when you're working with someone and against them.
And
Then
that's
from that
actually a very
point,
smart thing to do because, as you said, a lot of developers come into a property and they're basically like, I have this vision. And
yeah,
then they're trying to stuff that vision down the city or the county's throat, even though they don't want that. And that's where projects fail. That's where rezonings fail. That's where developments fail, because you all of a sudden get the entire neighborhood riled up against you and you don't have any support from the city. And soon enough, they vote this thing down, right?
100%. It all starts with aligning what the community wants and needs. You're still going to get some people that always are against it. And,
Of
that's one
course.
of those things you're never going to be able to make everyone happy. But once you've done that, now you can identify the areas, because they'll get a map and they'll show you what it is. And so that's a big part about what we do. Now, once we've done that and we've identified the parcels and we've identified the vision and we've got a value add strategy there, we either then go and put that land under contract and add value to the seller by saying, hey, we can pay you a lot more than what the land's worth if you allow us to rezone it or entitle it. And then from there, once we go under contract, we'll spend some money on civil engineering to do the due diligence. We'll make sure there's an endangered species report and there's not like a gopher or a turtle that we're going to hurt. We'll do the geotech report to understand what's underneath the dirt, where the rock is, how much it's going to cost to excavate. And then we'll also do an environmental report. We want to make sure that there wasn't like a mine there or some toxic waste that's being dumped on the site. And so once we've got all of our due diligence done and all of our costs nailed down, exit strategy number 1 is to buy it once we have added all the value and got all the approvals in place. And then we'll just flip that to another developer and we'll go about our way. 2, the second strategy is, after we get all those approvals in place and we purchase it, we're already working on this. We have usually then contracted with a builder who has said, hey, if you develop this, AKA put all the roads, the infrastructure, get me a piece of land that I'm ready to go vertical on for the houses, I'll pay you $80,000-$90,000 per pad for that. So the example I kind of gave you earlier is, we took this piece of land, got it approved for 74 homes. We've got a contract with a builder for $85,000 per pad on that. And so that's what we chose to go and do and pursue, rather than just flipping the land. That's exit strategy number 2. And then exit strategy number 3 is we actually take it all the way
Wait
through.
a second. Let's stay with number 2 in a little bit. So in this case,
Sure.
how are you getting paid 85 per lot? And how is the builder still making money on this?
Yeah, so it's most of the builders we work with are national builders or, very large local builders or who are, building hundreds of homes per year. It's mostly who we deal with. We're not dealing with a whole ton of mom and pop builders unless we have to break that development up. Some of the larger developments, when you get into like 200 plus units, builders want to share that, right? Because they want to be able to move inventory and hit their IRR numbers. We can talk about that here in a minute. But basically, they have a per pad price that they're willing to pay. And we discovered that during our due diligence process. Because again, when we're under contract for this land, we're underwriting for 3 different exits because it's always important, whether you're an investor or you're an operator,
Sure.
you always want multiple exit strategies built in. So that per pad price makes sense for them. They've backed into it using their Krabby Patty formula and said, hey, if you can hit this number, we will buy these pads from you and we will contract with them. And typically they're giving us a 5 to 10% deposit released. So in this case, we were selling the pads, I think total for about, $6.6 million all in. They'll cut me a check anywhere between $300 and $660,000 to go towards that development. So I've got an end buyer locked in for those pads. It's one of the reasons I like option number 2.
So, but in this case, who pays for the roads and who builds the roads?
We do. We're the developers. We're the ones developing it to sell the finished pads to the builders.
That's the part that I missed early on. So in this case, you are going beyond just the subdivision on paper and getting it approved. You're now actually going and contracting with people out there with bulldozers and stuff to actually go build the roads, build in that case also you put the utilities in place and saying at least roadside utilities, right? Underground utilities and all this kind of stuff. And then basically deliver to the builder a ready to go vertical on subdivision in a way.
That's right. Exit strategy number 1, flip the paper to the developer. Exit strategy number 2, we are the developer selling them to the builder when they're finished.
Okay, good. And then exit strategy 3,
we are the builder. We build and go vertical on it. And then hopefully we're trying to underwrite exit strategy number 4 where we can build it and hold it and rent it out and hold it for long-term cash flow and depreciation.
Right. Well, that makes sense because your cost factor is substantially lower. So instead of realizing the profits and sitting on a bunch of cash and then having to go buy something at retail, why not keep the development in that point at a lower cost basis, just refinance into it with a long-term loan and just hold on to it.
Yep. That's exit strategy number 4 that we're working on.
Can you walk me, perhaps me and our audience, through like on a high level, like what's the process steps from the point that you have a piece of land under contract to the point that you're ready to either sell it to a developer or actually go actually have the bulldozers come in? So what are the process steps there?
Yeah, so you want to get it to a point where you can basically have your approvals from your city and your state. Usually the city will approve everything. The city has an engineer that sits on staff and works with your civil engineer to make sure all the criteria is met and everything is safe. And then from that point, it gets sent to the state approves it. And at that point, you're pretty much ready to go and pull a grading permit and get your bulldozer. So everything I'm about to tell you, works up to that point. Now, here's a nuance. Every jurisdiction is different. They're going to have some nuances. So take it with a grain of salt. It's like a car. I can tell you how to drive a car, but they're all going to be driven just a little bit differently, right? I hopped in a Tesla the other day and I had no clue how to turn this thing on. It was kind of embarrassing. I didn't know how to do the windshield wipers. So with that being said, the first thing
I couldn't even open the door the first time I rented the Tesla. I had to go back to show them show me how to open the door of that thing.
Yeah, but you know how to drive a car, right? So that's kind of what I'm about to explain to you. But the first step and really what you want to do, it all begins with having a great civil engineer. If you've got the city kind of where you want them and they're developer friendly and, you've got something under contract, they're going to support it. I'm going to pretend all that's been done. At this point, you need a good civil engineer that can draw up a concept plan and kind of figure out how many units you can get on this. Once you've figured that out, you've got a concept plan and the city has okayed that concept plan. Now you can begin the process. And so really it's a lot of it is, taking you're trying to get up to a preliminary plat approval. So you're trying to take it to a point where the city goes, okay, all right, this is what we're going to approve. It's going to be, 40 townhomes. But just because you get that approval in place doesn't mean you're actually going to get 38 townhomes. Once you get it preliminary approved, it's basically said the value, it's there. You're going to get 40 townhomes on this thing. We've gone through some meetings. There's some public hearings where people can come in and make a case for why they shouldn't want it, and the commission will vote on it. And once you get your preliminary plat approval, then starts the process of figuring out all the little things that take a long time. So the civil engineers are the one that are going to design these developments, and it takes a long time to calculate the slope of the road, to calculate the slope of the sewer, to make sure the sewer and the water tie in, to make sure the grading works. And so this is what takes a long, long time. Your civil engineer is going to start producing construction drawings, and then it's going to be up to the city's departments to bless those construction drawings. So there's a reason why when you're taking something through entitlement that you, for example, have to get the fire department to approve it, and you've got to get the zoning department to approve it, and you got to get the water department and the sewer department. There's all these departments because they know what's safe and what works in the community and what won't cause some, disaster like your house flooding or your electrical outlets, blowing up and your home's catching fire. It's not too close to the telephone poles. So the city and developer and civil engineers, they work together to design something that's going to be safe and it's going to work. And that's what's the painstakingly long process, because it's the civil engineer going and literally drawing and designing everything that I just explained. Then it kicks it back over to the city, and their civil team is looking at it and they're making adjustments and might say, oh, this doesn't meet this frontage dimension. We're going to have to push the road back here. Well, that might kill 2 or 3 townhomes in your development, and there's not a whole lot you can do about that. And so during this process of the back and forth between the city and your civil engineer team, you're making sure that everything's safe and designed correctly. And then, once you get all of those approvals in place, there might be a traffic study that, you've got to do early on to make sure that there's not too many cars coming in and out of this road, for example. Right. So there's some steps that you got to do, but all of it is done with the intention of making the development safe and to work for the community. And so finally, after, 8-9 months of your civil team going back and forth with the city, back and forth until every single department has seen it 9 or 10 times and worked on it and can't find anything wrong with it. At that point, the city is usually voting to approve it, stamp it. And at that point, you can then send it to the state to get your state approvals. Once those come back, at that point, you're usually ready to go and pay for your grading permits and start pushing bulldozers around.
You specialize, to my knowledge, and correct me if I'm wrong, based on what I know about you, more in infill lots and either in residential or mixed use kind of development.
That's correct. So yeah, I don't do raw land development. We do infill development, which simply means that I buy typically either existing lots or I subdivide a larger piece of land into existing lots, but there's already utilities at the street. There's already roads. So I'm not doing raw land development where I'm subdividing land, building new roads, bringing utilities and infrastructure in, which from a development standpoint, infill development is simpler from that standpoint. And what we specialize is in multifamily or mixed use development. So either apartments or apartments with a commercial component in those buildings.
So what's the largest piece that you have built so far?
The largest that I've physically done so far, 2 weeks ago, we broke ground on a 45,000 square foot project. So it's 40 apartments and 8,000 square feet of commercial. So that's physically the largest one I've done so far. I've got one in permitting now that's 130 units, and that likely at this point breaks ground next year.
Oh, wow. So you're actually having things in permitting in spite of the interest rates and all the things that are happening right now. How do you calculate? Like, let's talk about that a little bit. Like currently, it's early 2014 right now. It is interest rates are a little bit down from where they were, but they're still 100% higher probably than they were, or 80 to 100% higher than they were just like a year ago. How do you are you in such a high-priced market that development still makes sense in spite of those things, or Or how does that still make sense? Because most people I talk in the construction area, they're currently just not building. I mean, they're finishing what they built, what they broke ground on, because they have the loan and they need to get it going and they need to finish it up. But they're not submitting new permits. They're not going into that part, which actually might lead to some shortage down the road again in product. But you seem to be exception on that. What's your thinking around that?
Well, I mean, in my market, there's a bunch of projects breaking ground. We are not in a super high rent market like Raleigh, Austin, Denver. I'm in Richmond, Virginia. We're probably in the mid-tier market, but deals pencil out. But right now, deals don't pencil out amazingly, but deals pencil out to where they're doable, right? This is not an environment where money is cheap. This is not an environment where construction costs are cheap. The key to get deals done in this environment, I think, is having low land basis and making sure that you're buying land correctly. And we've gotten pretty good at that and creating value out of land through various rezonings, special use, conditional use permits, variances. And so I'm still able to make deals pencil out, but they certainly don't pencil out as good as they did 2 years ago when rates were at 3.5%. But that being said, if I can still make deals pencil out to a bare minimum rate of return that I require, I'm still going to do them because long-term I'm bullish in the market. And these are all long-term plays, right? Like the wealth in these types of deals is created. I hold everything I build and I plan to hold it for the rest of my life. And real wealth in these deals is created over time.
Okay, that's an interesting concept. So you're actually not buying and building and then selling. You're buying, building, and holding. That is,
for the most part, I've got a spec home building part of my business where we build spec houses and sell them to owner occupants, but that's not a huge part of my business. The multifamily and mixed use buildings that I'm building, I'm keeping for cash flow. I'm keeping for appreciation. I'm taking depreciation off those things almost, we accelerate depreciation off the bat and use that to offset a lot of other incomes. So, I mean, there's a lot of benefits of these projects beyond just the cash flow that we're going to get from them when the project is built.
So let's go into the land game here a little bit, because you said something interesting that is obviously, like, if you get the land basis low and you've gotten really good at that. So when you say, so you're finding lots that as they are, the market value might be X, but once you get certain conditional use permits and things like that, that elevates the land thing. So you're paying you're not chasing people down and trying to get them at 50 cents on the dollar. You're just basically finding lots that potentially have some issues that you think you can overcome and build value that way. Is that about right? Or
so I've got deals in the last 2 years, multiple deals that I've done where I gave the seller a 50% premium over what their property was worth. But by the time I got done upzoning that land, the value of that land was double what I was paying the seller.
Right. So you're
so think about that. He got paid a premium and I doubled my money before I ever even closed on the land or put shovels in the ground.
I love that. I had conversations with some of our students recently about exactly that. And it's like, if you want to get into the development space, just offer them more than even asking. If you reasonably expect the value after rezoning to be much higher, because you don't have to squeeze them. Because we come out of the land flipping, the land wholesaling world, where the goal is always to get it as cheap as possible. But once you get into the development space, it's a completely different game. You got to think about it a different way. So thank you for bringing this up, because that's a great example.
I mean, look, that's what makes development, and that's what makes land fun, right? When you're looking at a single family home, 10 people can look at that single family home and their idea of the after repair value is going to be fairly similar, right? Somebody's going to renovate this house. Let's look at the comps. It's going to be worth $500,000. But 10 people can look at a piece of land and envision 10 different things going up there, right? And if I envision something bigger being built there, and if I know how to execute it, either by some kind of upzoning or taking advantage of a building code or some kind of a variance, then my as-built value is going to be much higher than somebody else looking at it, which means I can pay more to the seller than another person. And so there's a huge divergence in how people are going to look at land compared to single family houses.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, love that. That's great value add here for our audience that is typically just hearing like kind of one message about like, hey, get it cheap, or they're hearing it all over. They're hearing it in the housing world too. It's like, get it cheap and
lowball them. Just offer them 20 cents on the dollar, and they're going to be so happy to like. No, that's not. Yeah, you got to be more creative.
And that works, but it works only for a percentage of the buyers. If you have, once you get, as I said, once you get into the development game, there's so many more things you can do and really make it an even bigger win-win for everyone, because in that case, the seller just had to wait an extra, how long did it take to upzone that property?
The stuff that I do typically takes a year. So the seller has to be willing to give you a long contract on it. But if they're getting a premium, and if you can clearly demonstrate to them that they're getting a premium over what their property is worth, then it becomes worthwhile for them to wait.
Exactly right. And chances are they didn't get it last year or last week and are looking to sell it. They probably have owned it for 20 years already. So what's a 21st year to hold on to it? It's not a big deal.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Very cool. So now you do this, you build these up. I love the concept of actually keeping them. Now that sounds great, but don't you need equity in each of these deals? So you're building the equity to the land game, for example, that you then contribute in, or does your spec deal become your cash machine to produce the profits that you then roll over into the other deals so you can buy and hold them? Because the banks are not going to give you 100% loan to value usually, or loan to purchase price and so on. So you do need some cash into those deals. Where does that cash typically come from?
So that's a great question. So it can come from spec houses that I built. It can come from my other operating businesses, right? So I've got other businesses that generate sort of one-time profits, our software and education business, other things that we do. So I channel that money as equity into deals. But then again, because we can be creative with how we purchase land, I can achieve a greater leverage on my development than if I just go and buy a property and put 20 or 25% down. So, I mean, just as a simple example, let's say I want to buy a duplex in my market, and that duplex costs $500,000. I'm going to go to a bank, and the bank is going to say, we want to see, let's just keep it simple. They're going to say, we want to see 20% down. And I'm going to have to bring $100,000 in cash as my down payment to buy that duplex. But if I find a piece of land and I can buy it for $40,000 and I want to build a duplex on it, I can bring that piece of land to the bank and I can say, I'm bringing this piece of land that I own free and clear and it's worth $100,000. So now lend me the construction money that I need at 100%. The bank doesn't care. Most banks, if you're talking to a bank that does care, you're talking to the wrong bank.
Right.
The banks that I deal with don't care that I paid $40,000 for that piece of land. They're going to treat it like $100,000 piece of equity. So I'm able to achieve far more leverage if I execute the deals correctly by doing ground up development than if I'm just buying something and putting 20, 25% down on it.
And then in an ideal world, the construction cost is not $400,000, but the construction cost might only be $300,000.
Exactly. And so I'm building another 20% sweat equity. So think about it. You're exactly right. So now I've got $40,000 that I spend on land, $300,000 that I spend on construction that the bank fully funded, and now I'm into it for $340,000 plus closing costs, cost of money, right? So let's be conservative and say I'm into it for $375,000. Now it's worth $500,000.
Right.
So I created $125,000 in instant, not instant, it takes time to build, right? But like I created $125,000 in equity and wealth on my balance sheet by building and not buying.
And at this point, you go to the bank, the construction loan is done, you refinance into a long-term buy and hold.
40,000 out.
Buy and hold thing, you get the 40 out because you only need 100 in, so you have your money in there, and you basically now have done a deal that you temporarily put 40 grand in, got your 40 back in, you have no money in the deal, and it's a cash flowing deal if the numbers obviously are calculated right.
That's correct. Now look, that doesn't always happen, right? The multifamily projects that we do, that I have to build by commercial code, like the $14 million project we broke ground on 2 weeks ago, we're leaving money tied up. We're going to leave money tied up into it for a couple of years because the numbers are tighter. But a lot of the deals we are executing exactly the way we just talked about, and they're great. And if I am leaving cash tied up in the deal long term, it's not the end of the world, because that cash is earning me a good rate of return via cash flow. And then on top of that, I'm getting depreciation. On top of that, I'm getting amortization. You know, on the $14 million, you know, that one's got a $9 million note. On a $9 million note, how much amortization how much equity do my tenants create for me every year just by paying down the note, right? It's phenomenal. Yeah. So there are other benefits to holding these projects long term.
No, absolutely.
And I like the idea of doing the work once and getting paid forever. Like, flipping doesn't excite me. It just doesn't. Like, we make good money on spec houses, and it doesn't do anything for me. I get more excited about, you know, that. I don't get excited about the one-time big check. I get excited by the small check. It's going to come to me for the rest of my life.